are we talking about prisons of the mind? If I ask here today, is there anyone who has been to prison before? Not many people will raise their hands. If I ask, is there anyone who feels that they're in prison right now? Not many people will raise their hands. But the truth of the matter is that there are a lot of us who, because of the experiences that we go through in our lives, have created prisons for ourselves. And these prisons limit us from being able to interact. But it is going fluctuating. These prisons limit us from being able to interact with people, especially from being able to reach our full potential. There is a place that God has set for all of us to be able to reach or achieve. But most times, because of these prisons that we have caged ourselves in, we are not able to get to that potential. So that's what we are going to be talking about today, and I am going to be facilitating this discourse. My name is Johanna Dikibo. I'm a consultant SGBV psychologist, and I'm also the founder of Survivors Hub. Survivors Hub is a safe space for people who are experiencing trauma, abuse, and addiction. And when they come to us, we help them to be able to process their trauma in a healthy environment that enables them to think about what is going on with them positively. Because most times when things happen to us, the first thing that comes to our mind is the negative impact of what is going on with us. But we help them to process their trauma positively and to reflect on how they can grow from it. So alongside me, I have one of my interns here. His name is Prince Samuel. He's an aspiring psychologist who is passionate about the biological and social system that affect human choices and behavior. So together with him, we are going to be leading you on this journey. But I'm going to start today with a quote by a famous person, Laurel Hamilton. She said, "There are wounds that never show on the body, but they are deeper and more hurtful than anything that bleeds." There are wounds that we have. People may not see the scars. You can come out in the morning and nobody will know that you are carrying a wound. But deep down inside of you, this wound is bleeding and it is leading to other reactions. And that's the root of our discourse today, trauma. When we talk about trauma, we are not just talking about a physical trauma. Those of us in medical science will know that when we talk about trauma, we have physical trauma as a result of accidents. But we are not just talking about a physical trauma, we are talking about psychological or emotional traumas as well. And I'm going to give us a case study. We had a patient who came to our facility. His name was patient UG. He was a 45-year-old man at the time we met him. He came with his wife. And what was the reason for their coming? Their marriage was at the brink of collapse. Why? The wife complained. She said that he had changed. He was no longer the person that she knew when she got married to him. The reason we picked this particular patient as our case study is because most times when we talk about trauma, we tend to focus on women. Society tends to believe that women are the only ones who are capable of having emotional scars or facing trauma. But the truth of the matter is that if we are to do a research, you will find out that there are even more men who go through trauma, but society does not permit them to talk about it. Society does not permit them to cry about it. Society does not permit them to lean on anyone. And that was the case of this man. His wife complained that he was no longer having conversations with her. Their conversations had reduced to good morning, how are you? Do you need money to buy anything in the house? But outside of that, they could not have any meaningful conversations anymore. He was protective of his space. He was no longer letting anyone come around him. He was no longer willing to interact with anyone. The moment you try to approach him, he flares up. He gets angry. You can't even tell what you did to him that is making him angry. Sometimes just a simple good morning will cause a reaction that you'll be wondering, what did I do? So the wife was concerned, she was worried. And then he would always shut her up if she tried to give a suggestion. Even if the suggestion was something that was going to be useful to them or was going to be in their best interest, the moment she opens her mouth, it is as if she's trying to lord it over him. She's trying to take his position as the head of the family. So she was not allowed to give suggestions. She was not allowed to state her opinion. It's just do whatever I tell you to do. And so when he walked into our facility and we began to interact with him, we found out that he wasn't just behaving like that. He didn't just change. He was reacting to experiences that he had gone through over time that he had never really dealt with. This man lost, his parents separated when he was about 5 years old. And so he now had to start doing menial jobs to take care of himself. In the process of that, going in and out of people's houses, trying to help with one way or the other, being a house boy and all of that, he was abused both by men and by women. So he suffered that abuse, but he did not have anybody to tell. When he had the opportunity to complain to his father, he was told that it is a normal thing, he should deal with it. And so he learned to take it in. He was made sometimes to go hungry. There were a lot of things that happened to him that we wouldn't necessarily want to go through. But he went through a lot of psychological trauma. And then, because of the multiple cases of trauma, having to live with people who didn't necessarily recognize that he was also a human being, so he needed to be treated as a human being and all of that, he had to find a way to cope with what was going on inside. And so he entered into drugs. He was not only taking drugs, he started selling the drugs. He became very sexually promiscuous. He entered into a whole lot of things. But at the end of the day, one of the things that kept reoccurring was that people kept disappointing him. When he opens up his heart and lets someone in and trust them, they will take advantage of that trust, and at the end of the day he will see that they are just using him. So he told himself that people cannot be trusted. There is nothing like love. There is nothing. So even if at the time when he decided to get married, he just decided to get married because he wanted to continue his lineage, not because he wanted to experience anything good. He didn't believe that anyone could genuinely take him in, see him as a human being, love him, take care of him without expecting something from him. And so he built walls to protect himself. He didn't know that he had built these walls, but somehow the walls came up to protect himself. When he interacts with people, he does not come out with all of his emotion. He does not invest the entirety of himself into whatever he was doing, because he was certain that at the end of the day, the person will disappoint him. And so he started creating what we call in psychology a self-fulfilling prophecy, where the moment he meets someone, he will already predict that this is a bad thing that will happen with this interaction or relationship. And what happened? The law of attraction says, whatever you dwell on, you create for yourself, isn't it? Yes. And so, because he was expecting that people will treat him badly, and he was trying to protect himself, what did he do? He started actually making the people stay away from him. He started actually pushing the people to the point where they were reacting in the way that he was expecting them to react. And then the moment he can say very hurtful words that will make you angry, and then the moment you get angry and you flare up, you say, exactly, this is what I was expecting. But he was not able to reflect and see that whatever had happened to him in the past was past. But now he was creating the reality of these experiences. And so, because he believed obviously that strong men are not allowed to cry. So for him, the first phase towards healing was getting him to realize that crying was part of the healing process. And I want to say that to as many people as are seated here today. Many times we don't want to get in touch with our emotions because we feel that it makes us weak, because we feel that people will judge us, because we feel that people will not be able to handle the reality of what we are going through. So we put on a hard exterior. We try to man up and face it. But the truth of the matter is that there is no shame in tears. Once you are able to process your emotions and come to the point where you can allow yourself to truly grieve, we call it catharsis. It means that you are getting to the point where you can get relief and you can find healing. And so that was the first help that we gave to him. And that is, I brought this case study because it is linked to everything that we are going to be talking about today. So what is trauma? When we say someone is going through psychological trauma, what do we do? Psychological trauma is an emotional response to an event that is physically or emotionally overwhelming and harmful. It could be anything. For some persons, they may not necessarily have gone through experiences as bad as this person went through, but it could be that they lost someone, and just losing that person created so much grief that they could no longer go on with their normal activities and functioning. For some people, it could be that they lost a job. For others, it could be that they were not able to achieve the grades in their academics that they were expecting that they would have achieved. So it is a disturbing event that leads to significant fear. That's the first thing. The first sign of psychological trauma is fear. There are a lot of people who are afraid and they don't even know that they are afraid. Fear is not necessarily when you say, I can't climb upstairs because I'm afraid of heights, or I can't approach dogs because I'm afraid of them. No, there are emotional fears. This man that we just talked about had a lot of emotional fears that he was not even aware of. He was afraid of attachment, being close to someone enough to let them see who you are, to be vulnerable with them. He was afraid of it because he felt that they will always leave. There were a lot of fears. So fear, helplessness, confusion, or other disruptive feelings that are intense enough to have a lasting negative effect. That's the key word. A lasting negative effect on your attitude, your behavior, and your overall functioning. If you look at the notice board, if you were here last week and this week, you see that there's an article on the notice board about overthinking. And I was discussing with some of my mentees and students when we were coming up with that article. And when many of them, lately they saw the article, they were like, oh, this article is about me, I'm overthinking and all of that. And I said, no, you are not. Why? Because it's on a spectrum. You may just have the consciousness that, oh, maybe I didn't do right today, or maybe I should have spoken better to this person, but that's not necessarily overthinking. When we talk about overthinking in the sense of a dysfunction or a disorder, it means that, for instance, if I have a conversation with someone, I will go back home and I will spend my whole night thinking about what I could have said better, what the person meant by every statement they made. Why did this person say this? Why didn't they say this? What did they mean when they winked their eye? Why was their body language like this? And I'll be thinking about it so much so that I cannot sleep. I can't do anything. I just want to be able to process what exactly was going on in the person's mind. That's what we mean by overthinking. So even in this case, when we are talking about trauma, we are not just talking about something that lasts for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We are talking about something that continues over time. It has a long-lasting effect. It stops you from being able to live a normal life. It stops you from being able to interact with people as you should. It stops you from being able to reach your full potential because you're always conscious of the fact that things may not necessarily go the way I want them to. I can use myself as an example. After I lost my father, I became very conscious of a lot of things. So much so that it began to impair my ability to function on a daily basis. Many days I won't come out of my room unless I'm coming to Red Rose or I'm going for worship. My movement became triangular. House, Red Rose, worship. And whilst I'm in my room, I will not open my curtains. I will not let anybody see me until everybody has gone to bed. I basically withdrew from everything. Even then, I was only living alone in Abuja. Sometimes to go to work, I will wake up at 6 a.m. I'm ready, but I'll be sitting down on my bed just staring till like 10. And I'll not realize that, why am I still here? And I'll basically have to drag myself to work. When I go to the clinic, in front of my patients, I'm able to interact with them and all of that. But the moment I'm done seeing all of my patients, I'm back to isolation mode. I'm not ready to talk with anybody. I'm not ready to interact with anybody. I just want to be on my own. And should you break into that my confinement or that my space, I will flare up. I became so angry that even me, I couldn't recognize who I had become. So that's what we mean when we say someone is going through trauma. Now, there are different types of trauma, but I'm only going to talk about the three main ones because those are the ones that really affect us in this discourse. The first one I'll talk about is acute trauma. When we say acute trauma, it is trauma that is caused by a single event. Maybe you experienced a natural disaster, or you experienced an accident, and that experience was so overwhelming that you can't forget about it. It activates your fight or flight response. Permit me, please, I'll use my mother as an example. After my dad passed on, because she was present and she heard the gunshots and she saw the scene, what happened? She entered into panic mode. If she's sitting in the house and there is a loud noise, she will freeze. She couldn't even drive anymore because the moment she begins to approach that place where the scene happened, she will freeze. She will enter into panic attack and all of that. That's what we mean by acute trauma. What was happening was that her brain was remembering the events that had happened and processing it as if it was happening again or it was going to happen again. And for a long time, it wasn't really possible for her to really come out or interact. So I had to say, leave this environment, come and stay with me in Abuja until you are okay. And from there, she traveled, and by the time she came out, she was fine. So that is acute trauma. Acute trauma basically activates your fight or flight response. So you see that the person is always startled. The moment you shout, they will react in such a way as if somebody was about to slap them or somebody was about to beat them. Or the moment there is a strange noise or a strange sign, it's like they are always in panic mode. And they can't explain why they're in panic mode. But sometimes it could be because of an experience that they went through and they have not really been able to process it. We also have chronic trauma. Chronic trauma is a prolonged exposure to a very stressful event over a very long period of time. So for instance, someone who is experiencing domestic violence, or a child who is experiencing abuse, or a child who is being bullied, or even an adult who is being bullied, and it has been happening over and over and over, and they don't have anybody that they can explain to or tell that this is what is going on with them. Because most times, when people go through these kinds of things, society judges them. In our society here, we judge the victim, right? If someone comes, a young girl comes and says she has been raped, the first thing that people will ask is, what were you doing there? What were you wearing? Why were you outside at that time? Well, we give a lot of excuses for the perpetrator, but we do not have any sympathy for the victim. From my profession, I'm privileged to know that even men suffer domestic violence. There are men who are being beaten by their wives constantly, but they can't tell anybody because just like your reaction now, people will say, are you a man? How can a woman be beating you? And so because of the reaction of people, the judgments that they will get from you and I, they don't open up. In fact, in clinic, men who have gone through rape, men who have gone through violence, men who have gone through abuse are the most difficult to deal with. Because you can't get them to the point where it's difficult to get them to the point where they are in touch with their emotions enough to open up to you. Sometimes, rather than opening up to you, they will react in anger. Someone has thrown a table at me before, the consulting table that I was sitting on because he was angry. He wasn't angry at me. He was angry at the experience he had gone through. But the only way he could react to that anger was violence. So most times when we see men that are violent, it's not necessarily because that is how they were created or that is who they are. Sometimes it could be that they are going through an experience that they cannot explain. They can't tell anybody about it. Because if they tell people about it, they will judge them. They will laugh at them. People don't have sympathy for men. In fact, in our society today, people don't have sympathy for anybody. I had a case I was handling where a 3-year-old girl was abused, raped by her father. What will get you to the point, what does a 3-year-old have that should be enticing enough for someone to want to defile them? But do you know that people were still making excuses for the man? Yes, people did not want us to take up the case with police. The family was saying, oh, it will bring shame to their family. We need to cover it up and all of that. That is the society that we live in. That is what we have become as a people. So this is why people go through chronic trauma. They are not able to explain because they know that they will be judged. And the last one I'll talk about is complex trauma. When we talk about complex trauma, we're talking about multiple types of trauma. A particular person experiencing different types of trauma from people in authority. Like the case study that we used, patient Eugene, he went through complex trauma. Not only was he dealing with the separation of his parents, which already is a traumatic experience, at a very tender age of 5, 6, 7, he was already having to take on responsibilities that a child should not take on. Whilst he was dealing with that, he had to start living with one auntie, one uncle, this one and that one. They started taking advantage of him. They were physically abusing him. They were sexually abusing him. Men were abusing him. Women were abusing him. So he basically felt like he was a doormat. And that is why when his wife tries to say, let's do this like this, he feels like she too is trying to impose her will on him. Because that is what he has known all his life. So that's what we mean by complex trauma. Sometimes it could be as a result of neglect from the caregiver. And many parents today are guilty of this. We want to meet up with the challenges of life. So we don't have time to pay attention to our children. You go to work, you come back, you bring work back home. You don't know if they've eaten. You don't know what happened to them in school. You don't have the time to interact with them. What happened today? What did your classmates do? From those very little discussions, just allow your children talk. You'll be surprised what you'll be able to pick from them. You'll be surprised the kind of things they are being exposed to. You'll be surprised the kind of experiences that they are going through. Do they have the confidence to come and share them with you? Do they have the confidence that should I tell my father that my teacher was touching me inappropriately, he will be able to stand up for me? Some parents beat their children for complaining about abuse. They will say you are trying to spoil the name of the person, especially when that person is a family member. Because most times when abuse happens, especially sexual abuse, the perpetrator is not an outsider, it's not a stranger, it's somebody that you know around you. Either a neighbor or a family member, an auntie or an uncle that you have told to take care of the child, a domestic staff. Those are the people who are most likely to perpetrate abuse. But should the child come and say, oh, this is what has been happening to me, many parents will beat the children. They will say, don't say that again. Or they'll want to cover it up to protect the name and the image of the perpetrator. And so what are you teaching the child at the end of the day? We've been talking about our children for the past how many weeks, and we've been talking about how they are loose and all of that. But many of these things are because we don't have the time to interact with them, to actually know what is going on with them. So these are the 3 types of trauma: acute, chronic, and complex trauma. So the next thing I'll talk about is negative coping mechanisms. What I mean by that is big grammar, but let me break it down. Usually when things happen to us, we look for a way to interpret what is happening to us, and we look for a way to deal with it. So if someone is going through a financial challenge, for example, the coping mechanism they may want to look for is looking for assistance from somewhere else. Someone that can help them bear the burden. Maybe they take a loan or something until they are able to pay back. Now, there are different types of coping mechanisms. There are positive coping mechanisms and there are negative coping mechanisms. But most times, generally as humans, we tend to tilt towards negative coping mechanisms. So what are negative coping mechanisms? It is using a cognitive, when I say cognitive, I mean mental. You are creating a structure in your mind. So you use a cognitive or a behavioral strategy. By behavioral, I mean an action. So it's either you're coming up with scenarios in your mind or you are doing things that you feel are helping you to manage that difficult situation. Now, these negative coping mechanisms provide short-term relief, but they can lead to long-term psychological, emotional, and physical harm. The relief is short-term. You say, oh, let me not go faster than myself. But for instance, someone has gone through a very bad divorce and they are really emotional about it. But they know that society will not understand that they are actually going through pain. So what do? They look for a way to cope with it. They start going to work and over committing themselves to their work. You see this person at work, you say, this person is so hardworking, they are so focused, morning till night. Even if you call them at 3 a.m. and you have something for them to do concerning the office at that 3 a.m., they are ready to pay attention to you. And you feel that, oh, it's because of how committed and how diligent they are. But you don't know that they are just using that work as a means to distract themselves from what is happening to them. So a coping mechanism is basically sometimes a way to distract yourself from your reality. But the problem is that most times we tilt towards the negative aspects of it. My colleague, my intern will come and talk about the different types of coping mechanisms. But these negative coping mechanisms, usually they don't address the root cause of the issue. You see a lot of children who are addicted to substance. Many times we just look at them as bad children. Oh, this person is on drugs. How can this child be on drugs? This person is a drunkard. This person is an alcoholic. It could just be that they are using it to deal with a situation that they cannot talk about. Because you don't permit them to talk about it. So it becomes a coping mechanism. But this thing that they are depending on does not solve the root cause. Because after it has done whatever it is supposed to do for them, they will come back to face the situation. So what now happens? Because they still come back to face the situation, it ends up increasing the problem for them. Sometimes it will now create problems that were not even there. So, for instance, someone who is addicted to alcohol, over time, it begins to affect the capacity of the brain to function. We are going to talk about it later in the seminar, what you can find when someone is addicted to different kinds of substances. And then over time, because it is creating new problems and it is not addressing the issue, it now becomes a cycle. They now believe that for me to be able to get a little relief, I need to do this. But at the end of the day, I'm coming back to this. So the situation is always the same. I'm always doing this to deal with the situation, and it is a vicious cycle that never ends. Alright, so at this point, I'm going to give the mic to my intern Prince, and he will give us the types of negative coping mechanisms and give us a little explanation on that. Please make him.
Good morning, everybody. So, the first type of negative coping mechanism is avoidance and denial. When we talk about avoidance and denial, is whereby you see an individual, they are refusing to believe that this thing I'm having is a problem, but they themselves, they don't want to believe that it's a problem. So therefore, they are keeping it within themselves, and they won't even speak to anyone about it. So you know that this thing I'm having now, if I speak with this person, they will start looking at me, they will start judging or whatever. They will decide to bottle it up within themselves. That can also be a form of negative coping mechanism. Now, the next negative coping mechanism we have is substance abuse. This is a situation whereby an individual sees the use of substance like alcohol, drugs, or painkillers in excess as a relief for their stress or for a traumatic distress. Now, they will come up and they will take, let me just take this drug, maybe it will help me calm down and feel better. But the thing is, they're actually making it worse for themselves. On the long run, later on, might come up as addiction, which isn't a good thing for their physical health and their psychological health. Now, the third one is isolation and withdrawal. Now, when we say isolation and withdrawal, there are some people that they have same traumatic distress they are passing through, and they feel like they have no one to speak to. They don't have anybody they are comfortable with to share what they are passing through. So they will take it like, it's my problem, let me just handle it myself. And for that, they will isolate themselves. They will be in their rooms, they won't come outside, something they like doing, something they find interest in doing. Suddenly there's lack of interest, which is anhedonia. They will always be in their room 24/7, maybe they are on their phones, or sometimes they might not even be on their phones. Family might be having a discussion and you will call them, they will tell you that they are not feeling well and they can't come out. The family is having general dinner and they won't come outside. They will be inside their room, lock themselves up. Someone that usually comes to church by 6:30 a.m., you will see him 2 weeks, you will see him in church. So that also is a form of isolation and withdrawal. Now the next one is negative self-talk and self-blame. Now, some people take negative self-talk as a coping mechanism, whereby, let's say we have a situation now and they start blaming themselves. It's my fault. If I had not said what I said previously, this thing wouldn't have happened. Who am I self? Why am I always like this? Why is my own things always different? I hate myself. I don't deserve this. All those kind of, it also affects your mind, because when you say all those things, the brain also registers it. So it's more like they see it as a way to cope by satisfying themselves with those harsh words they are saying to themselves. So the next one is aggression and externalizing. Now, it's also something my senior colleague has said, that you see some people, you greet them in the morning, you come outside, you greet them, good morning, man, and they will flare up. Why are you greeting me, good morning, man? What is good about the morning? Sometimes you won't even know why they are angry at you, but they just burst into anger. At such situations like that, it's not that they are angry at you, they have you in mind. It will be that something that's bothering them within and is resulting to frustration and irritation, and also those anger you're seeing from them. Then the next one is self-harm. Now there are some people that are passing through pain, let's say emotional pain. They will find a way to transfer that emotional pain to physical pain, either by cutting themselves, or by burning themselves, or by hitting themselves. But their motion is to intentionally injure themselves to cause pain. Sometimes you look at their hands and you will see cut marks, you will see burn marks, but when they come outside, they will put up a smiling face, cover their hands, cover their legs, so you don't know what happened. And when they go in behind closed doors, they go back to that their frustration state, and what they see, they use it to inflict themselves, to injure themselves. And the next one is procrastination. Now, I might be having this trauma. Example, I might be having this trauma. Maybe I'm having stage fright and I have a presentation to give. I have a presentation to give. Now, the presentation is on my own time. I can decide when I want to give that presentation. It's not that we will have a fixed time. It's my own time. I can decide maybe, okay, I'll have it next week. But because I have stage fright, I'll keep on postponing it. I'll postpone it till next week. I'll be like, I'm not ready. Next week. Then when I read out, I cannot do this thing. Next week, I'll shift it and keep on shifting and keep on shifting. Now, the main reason why they are procrastinating whatever they are procrastinating about is they are afraid of the outcome. So another is anxiety. So you're anxious and you're afraid. What if I don't do this well? What if I don't deliver well on my performance and I get to do great? So that also can also be a form of the type of negative coping mechanism based on their previous experience. Now the next one is binge eating or emotional eating. Now there are foodies in the house. There are people that like food. And when they have a problem, let's say you go outside and someone is sold, or let's leave that one, you have a trauma from the past experience, and your way of coping is by eating. You'll be like, this stress is too much. I just came back and the whole stress, headache and everything, and you start consuming food. Most cases of emotional eating or binge eating is associated with high calorie foods, whereby they go and order shawarma, they order like 4, and they will eat it throughout the night. They will just be eating. There are even some cases whereby they are full, they are eating to their satisfaction, but they will still be eating until it gets to the point that their body can't hold it, they will start throwing up. Yes. So all those are part of emotional eating, although it's a eating disorder. It's an eating disorder. So the next one is impulsive or risky behavior. Now there are some people that also exhibit or have passed through emotional trauma in the past, and let's say they have also involved themselves in substance abuse. All of a sudden they will start taking impulsive decisions without even considering the end point, the consequences of that action, like reckless driving, drunkenness, going into fights, starting fights and all that. It's also a way of coping with their trauma. They will just be like, let me just go outside, and when they drink, they will start driving recklessly on the road. That's also a form of coping mechanism, and that's all for types of negative coping mechanisms. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please encourage him. Thank you. So I'm just going to shed more light on 2 things that he spoke about. The first one is self-harm. We don't know how common self-harm is in our society. When we talk about it, you feel like it's strange. But this is a tip especially for parents who are here. If you observe that all of a sudden your child only wants to dress corporate, they want to wear long sleeve and suit. This is a child that normally they could wear knicker and t-shirts and go out and they'll be happy and comfortable. But all of a sudden, they always want to wear long sleeve. They always want to button up. You need to check that child. It's possible that they are harming themselves. If you check their skin, you may see lacerations. Sometimes it may not even be lacerations, maybe track marks. Especially for those of them who are using drugs, they begin to inject themselves. So, and they will inject themselves in areas where you will see them. So on their laps, for example, you will see track marks. On their hands, this part of their hands, you will see track marks or lacerations. So if you just observe that all of a sudden, for 2 months, 3 months, even when the sun is very hot, this child is wearing sweater. Why? You need to find out, you need to investigate. And then we talked about binge or emotional eating. Binge eating is not just that you love food, like my intern said. It is eating to the point that even when you are satisfied, you can't stop. When we were younger, we used to watch foreign movies where you see that someone went through a breakup and they cut their hair and they start eating ice cream. And we say, oh, it's an American movie. But even in our society here, it happens. You see that all of a sudden, this person wants to eat only sugary things or salty things or fatty foods. It's possible that they are using it to cope with the pain that they are feeling inside. So the person is not eating, but they are eating cake, ice cream, shawarma, popcorn, pizza. That's the food that they are eating, bread and tea. That was me. Morning, afternoon, night is only bread and tea I want to eat because that was the only thing that I could really feel comfortable with, but it was my own coping mechanism. So sometimes it may not be something extraordinary. It may just be that all of a sudden someone who had a wide palate, they could eat a wide variety of foods. They now decided to just focus on one particular food, morning, afternoon, night. That's the only thing. And they want to eat it in a particular way. It now becomes like a ritual for them. I must eat it at this time. If it's garri and soup, the garri must be on the left hand, the soup must be on the right hand. If you put it the other way, they cannot until they adjust it, because that is how they are trying to cope with whatever it is that they are going through. And then impulsive and risky behaviors can also include sex. They become excessively involved in risky sexual activities. When I say risky, there are a lot of risky sexual activities that are going on right now. I'm not even talking about as wild as going into bestiality, but even among humans, there are a lot of risky things that are going on. And they will just want to try every new thing that comes out. Recently, I was reading a story where in Lagos, they now have this thing that you can order a barber at any time in the night, and when the barber comes, apart from cutting your hair, they can also give you sexual pleasure if you want. So you pay for the two services. Now, somebody can decide to indulge in that because they are using it as a way to cope with something that they have gone through. So there is a lot that is involved in negative coping mechanisms. Now, let's move on to who is an addict. Who is an addict? If I ask a question here, who is an addict, or is anyone here an addict? Many of us will say no, I'm not an addict. If I ask who is an addict, many of us will say an addict is someone who is abusing a substance, someone who is taking alcohol. Someone who takes a lot of drugs, who injects themselves. That's our picture of addiction. But addiction is beyond just drugs. So the reason why I have this next set of slides is because I want you to test yourself. Before you start, the reason why we are not able to help others is because we are not able to look inwards and see our own problem. If you are able to recognize a weakness in you, you become more sympathetic towards someone who is going through the same weakness. Let me give you an example. As all of us are seated here, if someone comes in here and they tell a lie, someone who is not used to telling lies will be very angry. How can you lie about something so simple like that and all of that? But someone who loves telling lies will say, maybe they didn't know how to say it. Maybe they didn't know how to cope. Maybe they were afraid. So that was why they will be sympathetic with the person. Why? Because they have the same weakness. And so that's what we are going to be doing now. You are going to be testing yourself. Before you think of the addicts that you want to judge, let's see whether you have some of those traits. So self-test. Are you an addict? Craving and compulsion. This is one of the signs of addiction. It basically means an intense, overwhelming desire for a substance or behavior leading to a compulsive need to use or engage in it. Let me use an example that has nothing to do with drugs. There are some people who cope by cleaning. Do you know? They cope with trauma by cleaning. So when you enter into the environment of this person, it is spick and span spotless. It is very clean. In fact, I know somebody who, even when all the clothes in the house are washed and they are clean, they will just go and bring everything out and begin to wash it again. Nothing is wrong with the clothes. They are iron. They will just bring them out and wash again. And somebody will say, oh, it's because when you ask, they will say, they've stayed in the wardrobe for too long, so maybe dust has settled on them. It's a lie. They are trying to cope with something, and they are not ready to tell you what that thing is. So, and it is an intense, overwhelming desire. What do I mean by that? This person now, for example, if you decide that, okay, because this person is older than me, let me help this person to wash these things, they will not let you do it because they have a particular way they want to do it. Even me, I'm like that, unfortunately. If I'm writing the work list and I believe that name should come before date, if you write dates before name, even if you have written 100 names, I will cancel that list and start again from the beginning. Because until I do that, I won't be comfortable. My mind will keep going back. If maybe the list, it was so close that they have to submit the list and they're already working with the list, my heart will be beating because I'll be like, oh, that list is not the way it is supposed to be. It's supposed to be like this. So I will be thinking about that thing and I won't be able to concentrate on anything else. That's what we mean by craving and compulsion. Now, why did I use that example? Remember, we are testing ourselves. So this one may not affect you, but there are some people that it affects. Compulsive actions, intrusive thoughts that lead to compulsive action. Once that thought comes, you can't control yourself, no matter where you are. I had a patient that I was attending to that he had a hypersexual disorder. It was so bad that even if he's at a filling station, he can decide to start masturbating there. Sure. Yes, he can be in his car and decide to start masturbating there because the thought has come and he cannot control himself from it. So that I'm using this just to explain to you that addiction does not always have to do with drugs. Sometimes it can be a behavior, but you're not aware that this behavior has become an addiction. Loss of control, the inability to stop or reduce the behavior even when you want to. I'll still use myself as an example, and I actually feel that this particular one is because of the kind of parents that brought me up. My parents are perfectionists. They like to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So me to have adapted to dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's. And when my dad was still here, for those of us who were privileged to work with him, if he's cleaning the hall, let's use Bender Hall as an example, his procedure is he cleans from left to right. Then he cleans every two squares. When he now gets to that place where the door is, he will clean from the inner door to the outer door, out, then to the balcony. So if he tells you to clean the hall, and you clean the hall from right to left, then clean from the outer door to the inner door, he may not necessarily respond to you. But after you have gone, he will take the mop and clean it again. Because for him, that hall has not been properly cleaned because it was not done the way he wants it to be done. And do you know the funny thing? I've picked up that trait. If I go to clean that Bender hall, I also start from left to right because in my mind now, that is how it is supposed to be done. And should you come and do it in a different way, I will go back and I will clean it again just so that I can have that peace of mind that it has been done properly. So it is loss of control. Even when you want to stop, even when, okay, I'm a psychologist, I know that it is not, it is maladaptive behavior basically. I'm wasting my time The person who did it with all joy, did it with all passion. They were doing it for the love of the Almighty, and the place is clean. But because my head will not accept that the place is clean, I will go back to do it again. Even when I want to stop, I can't stop. Why? Because it basically has taken control, that's taking my mind captive. We are talking about prisons of the mind, right? These are some of the prisons that can hold us bound that we don't even know about.
They are demons.
So we have mood modification. Sorry, there's plenty big grammar, but I'll break it down so that you understand. Mood modification basically means escaping from negative feelings through usage, or you use a behavior to experience a desired mood. So someone is feeling very down, and they know that the only way I can feel better is to watch series. So they go on YouTube. You watch 24. That's 24. Every episode is 1 hour. So you use the whole 24 hours. You have watched one full season. They come back tomorrow, use another 24 hours, watch season 2. You'll be like, is it that this person does not have anything to do? Is it that they don't have anywhere to go? This child is just being lazy. This child does not want to have a future. They are just using that behavior to modify their mood. There's something going on with them that they cannot express. And the only way to feel safe within themselves is to look for something else that can make them feel better. Alright, so we also have, I hope you are testing yourself, because I will come back to ask you. We have conflicts and consequences. So they refuse to stop despite negative outcomes in life. Even when they see that this particular behavior is straining my relationship, has made me to lose a job, it is giving me legal issues, they will continue with it. Let me give an example. Someone enters into gambling. How many sure odds do they usually have for the day? Where are my gamblers now? I know that we are plenty here. Don't leave me alone now. So no bet Naija person in this place. Look out. Okay. Thank the Lord. So they're gonna get a slip. You pay 200. If your team is able to win, you'll be able to get maybe 10,000 naira. Sure odds. They don't give me this one today. At least 2 go cut inside. By the end of the day, let's say you are lucky enough, and that particular day, luck shines on you, you get the 10,000. You now start increasing the amount that you are using to bet. From 200, you graduate to 1,000 because the stakes are higher. If I put 1,000, I can get 200,000. Now you see that this money that you are using to do this betting, even the money you are supposed to use for school fees, you have used it to bet. The money you are supposed to use to buy food for the house, you have used it to bet. It will get to a point you will start selling chair, you will carry your chair yourself, carry TV, sell, carry the house is getting empty, so you are seeing it that this thing is not helping me. But because you have the confidence that because I've won that 10,000, I'll be able to win 1 million, you won't stop. You will continue doing it. So this can also be a way to find out that you are an addict. There are negative consequences. It is creating conflict. Your wife is quarreling with you. Why are you using the money to do like this? Children's school fees we've not paid. They've been driving them from school, but you are using the money to bet. But even when you go in your inner room, you judge yourself. You ask yourself, why am I really doing this? But tomorrow you will still be the first person to complain. Cognitive and emotional distress. So you begin to have mood swings. 1 minute you're happy, the next minute you are so angry. You can't even tell how you moved from one extreme to the other. Irritability, difficulty concentrating or making decisions, anxiety, depression as a result of withdrawal from the substance or behavior. Let me use myself as an example. I've told this story before. When I was in second year in university, I got addicted to Coca-Cola. Coke, that normal Coke that we drink. I got addicted to it. If I'm going to the library in the evening, I'll buy a 33cl bottle. So the moment I get to the library, that's the first thing I'll drink to calm down first. Then I'll start reading. I usually, my routine was, most times I finish my lectures at 5 or 6. Then I go home, prepare whatever I need to prepare, rest, and then I come back to the library at 10. So when I come to the library at 10, I stay till 6 a.m. and I go back. Now I had this 3-liter bottle of Coke that I will also buy to be in my bag with my rich tea biscuits. So as I'm reading, I've already taken the 33cl. I'll now be downing the Coke. The moment that bottle is empty, I don't need to check time. I know it's 6 o'clock. And I'll start going. But before I leave to go home, I'll go to the vending machine. I'll buy another 33cl so that when I get home, I will calm myself down first. I attend to what it is. But what happened? Like I said, I got addicted to it. And I was the one that diagnosed myself. That's the good thing about my profession. How did I know I'd gotten addicted? If I don't drink Coke, I can't even write. My hands will be shaking. I can't concentrate. My mouth will be dry. You'll be talking to me, I don't understand what you are saying. My body is just shaking until I take that Coke. Then I'll now have myself back. Why am I using this example? Addiction is not necessarily always alcohol or weed. Even things that we think are simple substances can actually become addictive substances. So basically, like I said, mood swings, difficulty concentrating, irritability, anxiety, you begin to panic because you have not taken the drug. You begin to panic, you begin to lose concentration, you begin to do things that ordinarily you would not do. So the next thing we'll talk about is addiction. Now, before we go into talking about addiction, I believe you've been able to rate yourself. I'm not going to ask you because if I ask you, many people say, no, I'm not an addict though. But from what we have listed out here, you'll be able to find out that in one way or the other, you have things that you are struggling with or trying to cope with. So what is an addiction? We define addiction as a chronic relapsing disease of the brain. A chronic relapsing disease of the brain. Why do we say relapsing? It is relapsing because most times when someone says they want to stop, they can, you see, if you go to AA groups, AA support groups, you see somebody who come, will tell you, hello, my name is Johanna, I was addicted to Coca-Cola, I've been clean for 8 years. Why do they say that? Because there's a tendency that if something else happens in your life that you are not able to cope with, you'll be tempted to go back to start that cycle again. So even in clinic, we teach our patients that relapse is part of the process of recovery. So don't judge yourself if you fall back to the behavior that you were trying to avoid. Yes, but the truth of the matter is that with each relapse, you get better. You find out why you relapsed, and you are able to protect yourself from relapsing again. So it is a chronic relapsing disease of the brain. Why is it a disease of the brain? Because it interferes with your ability to be rational, to make rational decisions or rational choices. Ordinarily, you know that you should not spend your children's school fees on betting. But because your brain chemistry has been altered, what happens? Even though you know that you should not spend your children's school fees on betting, you still do it. So it is a disease of the brain. And I'm saying this because many people think that people who go through psychological issues don't need treatment. There are many times when, even in this environment, I've made a referral for people. I'll say, this your parents or this your child is sick. They need to see a psychiatrist. And they'll say, the person says, God forbid. As if it's not the Lord that also gave us the profession. They'll say, God forbid. No, I'm going to pray about it. Why? Because there's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of stigma attached to it. And they do not believe that emotional issues also have doctors that can take care of them. So most times we only think we are sick when you have headache, or you have back pain, or they say you have cancer, or you have this or that, and say, hey, this person is sick. But when the person is going through grief, for example, there's a level of grief that you will go through that it becomes maladaptive, it becomes an illness. We will not be willing to go to a doctor for grief. When someone goes through a breakup, if you tell them you need to see a therapist, they will say, what am I seeing a doctor for? Because of breakup. It's just emotion that will come out of it. And that is how our society is. So addiction is a disease. And every disease needs what? Treatment. Are we together? Now, I define it, to break it down, as psychological dependence on a substance or behavior as a coping mechanism or a lifestyle. You will say you are addicted when you are now dependent on that thing. That thing may not necessarily be there are people who go through dysmenorrhea, menstrual pain, and it's so bad that they must take medications. For some people, they need to be on admission to be able to cope with it. But even that can become an addiction, because as we go through, you see substances that can be abused, and you find out that prescription painkillers are also part of substances that can be abused. So when we say you are addicted, it's when you become dependent on that substance. So because of the fear that, this thing is coming and it's going to be so terrible and all of that, even before it comes, you've already taken multiple painkillers, not just the one that they prescribe for you. The doctor has his prescription that he has given you. You go to chemist, tell them mix this and this and this and this for me, and you swallow all of them because you want to avoid that pain that you will go through. It has become an addiction because you are now dependent. Alright, so what are the types of addiction? I'm going to start with behavioral addictions because that's the one that is not common. All of us are aware of substance. And once we say addiction, there is substance abuse, but there are behavioral addictions. These are not substance addictions. So, what are the types of behavioral addiction? Okay, first of all, what is a behavioral addiction? A behavioral addiction is dependence on a particular kind of behavior to be able to get relief from trauma or pain. When you are so dependent on doing this particular thing, to be able to help yourself. That's what we call it. We are helping ourselves with whatever stress we are going through. But you have to engage in this behavior to help yourself. Then it has become a behavioral trauma. So you are compulsively engaging in that activity despite the negative consequences. And you do it as a means of seeking pleasure or seeking relief. Now I must add that not all addictions are as a result of trauma. Sometimes addictions evolve as a result of experience. You just want to experience something. So all my friends are taking shisha. Let me join them. And then from trying, or all my friends are taking weed. And I try one wrap. I'll start with a small wrap. Then before you know, I've gone to jumbo. Before you know, I'm taking three. I had a patient who was taking 2 carts of tramadol at the same time. He will open the 2 carts and swallow everything. Why won't it affect your brain? So sometimes addiction can just be, and that one, he was taking it because he does menial jobs. And they say they need something that will give them strength to be able to carry whatever they need to carry. So by interaction, he has seen that most of the people who do these jobs take this substance. So let me try it. Then from trying it, You now start increasing until it becomes a maladaptive behavior. So it is characterized by loss of control over the behavior, resulting in significant health challenges, problems with psychological well-being, and daily functioning. There are a lot of health challenges that can come out of addiction that you may not be aware of, but we'll talk about them as we go on. So what are the types of behavioral addictions? The first one is compulsive shopping. Women, oh yeah! Oh yeah! Do you know that shopping can become an addiction? Just the love for shopping. I need to help myself. I need to look good. You already have 5 weeks in your closet. But the moment you go on Facebook and you see that they're advertising this one, I must get it. Even if it is 400,000 that you don't have. Whatever you need to do. Whatever you need to do to ensure that this week is in your closet, you will do it to get it. Compulsive shopping. This means even when you know that you can't afford it, you can't stop yourself from doing it. For some people, the moment they step out of their house, they may have gone out with money, 100,000. As I'm going to the market now, this is my list. This is what I'm going to buy. These are the things we need in the house. They go to the market, they see shoe. They say, let me just buy this shoe first. There will still be enough money to buy the other things. By the time they come back from the market, nothing on that list has been bought, but they come back with plenty things. That's compulsive shopping. Hallelujah. So compulsive shopping is a type of behavioral addiction. Food addiction. We already talked about binge eating. You eat even when you know that you are satisfied. Sometimes you can't stop yourself. The moment you see somebody with food, you want to join them to eat. You want to put your hand in it. Even if it is somebody that you don't know. Sometimes the person may even be dirty. Ordinarily, it's not the kind of person that you interact with, but just because you are seeing them with food, you can't stop yourself. You must put your hand, you must eat. Until you eat that food, you're not satisfied. That's an addiction. Internet, computer, mobile phone. Where are my Gen Zs in the house? Gen Zs, oh yeah! This is a major addiction in today's world. You wake up in the morning, you are not able to take care of your environment, you are not able to do anything. You even have classes you are supposed to go to. You are more interested on taking Snapchat videos and TikTok videos. You are more interested in watching what is happening. TikTok, you stay on TikTok 4 hours, 5 hours. When you see them, they are with their phone. What exactly are you doing with your phone? I'm browsing. What are you browsing? When I was growing up, my dad put restrictions on everything we did. You can't watch TV for more than an hour, 30 minutes in my house. It's an abomination. More than an hour, 30 minutes, you are sitting down, you are watching TV, but you don't have any other thing to do. But right now, in fact, you won't even, this one is very common because everybody has a mobile phone that has internet. So it will even get to the point where you begin to beg people for hotspots just because you want to continue that behavior. You begin to steal people's hotspots because you want to continue that behavior. Once there is hotspot that has no password, you have logged into it. Why? I need to know what is happening online. For some of us, it even goes beyond this. So living fake life on the internet. You want to follow every trend that you see online. Today they are saying everybody should jump on their head. You too, you've done your own video. Someone tagged me on WhatsApp status. They were doing a challenge where they said, post your picture and state your best Bible verse. Then when you are done, tag 3 of your friends. So I did it and tagged 3 of my friends. And this person now chatted me up and said, Auntie Joe, why didn't you tag me to this thing? Why didn't you put me on this channel? The person was really angry. And I didn't add the person because, number 1, me and you are not that close. Then number 2, you are not somebody that is really interested in scriptures and all of this. I said, okay, maybe I've judged this person wrongly. I now tagged the person to the challenge. The person now say, oh, thank you for tagging me, but now I don't even know which scripture to use, so tell me. And in my mind I'm like, so you are just interested in participating in the challenge. You don't even, because you are supposed to give your best Bible verse and explain why it is your best, what you've learned from that. So if I'm the one that is now telling you why are you joining the challenge? But it's an addiction, because I must be on every social media trend. The next one is gambling. We are all familiar with this one. Some people can sell their landed property, sell their cars, sell everything that they have, even themselves. If you watched Suits, you will find out that there was once that Harvey had a client that he had to go and save from gambling because the man had used his company, his full company, to gamble. So his lawyer had to come and intervene. Work. I already explained how work can become an addiction, where you want to engage. For some, it must not be office work. It can even be this spiritual work. You commit yourself to it so much so that you don't have a life outside of Red Rose. If Red Rose goes on break, you don't know what to do with yourself again. Because you don't have friends, no social life, nothing. You don't have people that you can call to gist with. The only thing you know is I'm going to Red Rose Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So even there are sometimes Red Rose is on break. You come into the compound, you see some people seated there. What are you doing here? I just felt like receiving the air of Red Rose. Let me just get the breeze of Red Rose. So when we talk about work addiction, it's not just office work. It can also be spiritual work. Whatever you do in excess, so much so that you cannot control yourself, it interrupts your other daily activities, is an addiction. Even though God wants us to serve Him, He also put us on earth so that we can experience. In fact, I read in the Great Message, I think it's on the notice board, it said, you should not become so spiritual that you cannot live a normal life on earth. I'm using that one to advise myself, use it to advise yourself too. Hallelujah. Pornography and sexual promiscuity, it can also become an addiction. Yes, sometimes in clinic, we use porn to teach. But it becomes an addiction when you cannot do without it. For you to even have a normal interaction with your spouse, you must watch video first.
Yeah.
You must, in fact, anyway, let's not go into it. Sexual promiscuity. There are some people who, they don't have just one partner. They have multiple partners. They are not in relationship with them. Because now, you know, there are different grades of relationship. There are casual partners, there are friends with benefits, there are all sorts of titles now that they are given. There is open relationship. Me and you are in a relationship, but we can still be seeing other people. But we are in a relationship. So but most times when people are willing to engage in sexual promiscuity, it can be as a result of trauma. It could also be that it has become an addiction as a result of maladaptive behavior. Alright, so let's go to substance addiction. This is the one that we're familiar with. Substance addiction is the use of psychoactive substance to cope with stressful situations despite negative physical, behavioral, or health consequences. The substance can be anything, and we are going to talk about the different types. But a psychoactive substance is something that affects the chemistry of your brain. It can affect it in different ways. It can stimulate the brain. We have psychostimulants, we have psychodepressants, we have hallucinogens. Let me not jump the gun, but basically whatever affects the chemistry of your brain and makes it, you use it as a means to cope with stressful situations, even though it has a negative effect on you. It is a substance addiction. There are different classes of addictive substance. So yes, the first one, like I said, CNS depressants or psychodepressants, as we call them. This will slow down the activity of the brain. So alcohol falls under this category. We have, for those of us who are clinicians, benzodiazepines and barbiturates that we use for depression also fall under this category. Then we have psychostimulants, cocaine, nicotine, caffeine, methamphetamine. I told you I was addicted to Coca-Cola. How did I get addicted to Coca-Cola? The active ingredient in Coca-Cola is caffeine. That's one of the active ingredients. So it was the caffeine in the Coca-Cola that I actually got addicted to. We have hallucinogens or psychedelics. These ones alter your perception of reality. So they will make you, so there are some people who will say they are only able to write when they take something. It will give them inspiration. Or for a lot of artists and musicians, they will say they are only able to sing, they are only able to perform when they take something. Most of the substances they take are hallucinogens. It alters your perception of reality. So when you take this type of substances, you begin to see things that are not there. You begin to hear voices that no other person can hear. You begin to feel things that people cannot feel. It affects all parts of your senses depending on the particular type of substance that you are taking. So there are substances that will make you see, there are substances that will make you hear, there are substances that will make you have extrasensory perception. You will be able to smell things that people cannot smell and all of that. So they all fall under hallucinogens. Then we have opioids. These are narcotic analgesics. Most times in clinic, they are used as very strong painkillers. But people also take them. Heroin, codeine, morphine, opium. These days now, codeine is no longer an over-the-counter medication because it was seriously being abused. I know someone who used to take 6 bottles of codeine to be able to sleep in the night. Sometimes they will mix it with other drinks. They can mix it with a casera and all of that. And then you just see that somebody is drinking, let's say Ribena, and you want to share the Ribena with them, and they are dragging the bottle with you. But it's Ribena you are drinking, why can't I share? They can't tell you why you can't share, but they won't give it to you because they probably mixed it with something. So opioids. We also have dissociative anesthetics. They take you away from reality. These ones, they are also a kind of painkillers, but they stop the pain instantly and they make you not to feel the reality of what is going on with you. So it's like you are dissociated from your environment. And then we have inhalants. Many people don't know that people take inhalants as addictive substances. Paint thinner, fuel, adhesive gum or glue, plastic cement, nail polish remover. There are people, I've said it before, early in the morning you always see them sitting by sock away. Why are they sitting by sock away? They are inhaling it to get high. Some people, you see them at Lagos bus stop. That place, that time they used to do, they used to sell fuel now. You see them there by empty jerry cans. They just sit down. Why are they there? They are inhaling the distance to get high. So all of those fall under inhalants. Then we have cannabinoids. These are substances that have tetrahydrocannabinol as the active ingredient. So marijuana, your normal weed. That one is very common. These days now, they don't even smoke it anymore. We eat it. Put it inside cake. Put it inside cookies. Inside Indomie itself. And they put that. Hashish. Then we have empathogens. These ones help you to feel sympathy. You just be feeling it. You just have a feeling of euphoria. You'll be excited. So these ones, they call them party drugs. Youths are the ones that really engage in this one now. Ecstasy, Molly. When they take it, you're excited. You can do anything. You can jump anywhere. You're not afraid. You have all power. So now, how do I know that I'm struggling with an addiction? How do I know I'm struggling with an addiction? The first thing, I want you to reflect and I want you to identify. That's the purpose of my being here. Cravings. That's one of the first signs of addiction. So what is a craving? It means an intense desire to engage in that thing. You can't stop yourself. No matter how much you try. You try to distract yourself, it's not working. You try to do this, it's not working. You try to do that until you take that thing. It's like I was telling you when I was addicted to Coca-Cola. Until I take that Coca-Cola, I can't read. I can't even write. Because all my hands will be shaking, all my body will be shaking. That's a craving. Then the moment I take it, I'm satisfied, I'm calm. Inability to stop. No matter, even if you go to your pastor to pray for you, maybe you may be lucky, the helpers will pour you water and you will stop. Except that, no matter how much you try, on your own, you can't stop it. Increase tolerance. What do I mean by tolerance? Basically, okay, let me use malaria medication as an example. There are some people who, once they have small headache and fever, hey, malaria is disturbing me. They don't even go to doctor. They just go to chemist. Give me malaria medicine. They will swallow it. 2 weeks later, they are treating malaria again. Then before you know, the normal dosage that should be able to give you relief can no longer treat your malaria because you've gotten resistant to it. So what happens? You have to increase the dosage. Over time, you can't even take that one again. You have to take more expensive ones to be able to get the same effect. So that's what we mean by tolerance. Tolerance means that to get the same effect from that thing, you have to increase the quantity that you are using. So if before it was 1 crate of beer you were drinking to get high, now you have to take 6 to reach that same level of high. So that is tolerance to the drug. Pathological preoccupation or intense focus. You cannot focus on any other thing apart from that substance or that behavior. It limits you. In fact, you can't think of any other thing. Even if you are inside the hall and work is going on, the thing that you are thinking about is, oh, I need to, when will we finish this? So the others are taking too long now. Let's go. So you can't focus on anything else apart from it. Lack of control, which now leads to feeling of shame, helplessness, and guilt. You tell yourself, okay, this week, I'm not going to, let me use an example. I had a friend when we were in the UK, but we're all living together. He was like, I get to United Kingdom, I'm still speaking pidgin. My accent is not changing. So now I'm going to take a decision. I'm not going to speak pidgin with any of you again. I only speak English. He took that decision. The first day, as he came out of his room, the first person he met was a Nigerian, obviously. They were like, guy, how far now? Today has gone. By the time he knew it, a week had passed, and he was not still able to not speak pidgin. In fact, the moment he wakes up, even when he wants to pray, the first thing that comes out of his mouth, sometimes is called alpha. So lack of control, you can't stop yourself, and at the end of the day, you begin to feel ashamed of yourself. You feel like, oh, I'm a bad person because I'm doing this. I'm helpless. Then I can't help myself, so let me just continue. You feel guilty about doing it, but you can't stop. Personal problems and health issues. You start losing money. You start struggling with your health. For those who take alcohol, over time it will begin to affect your liver function, your kidney function. For some of those drugs, they will reduce your heart rate, you will have loss of memory and all of that. But even when you are seeing the negative impact of these things, you can't stop. Unexplained financial losses and taking increased risk. You are willing to go and take loan from 100 loan apps just to be able to afford that substance that you want to take. even if they are, you know how loan apps do now, they will now send message to all your contacts to say so person is owing us and they've used you as a guarantee. But even with the shame, you will still go and block all those lines, buy new line and take new loan. So unexplained financial losses and risks, physical withdrawal, like I said, shaking, sweating, you just somebody they are always catching. They feel like ants are moving on their body. That usually happens with cocaine withdrawal. They are vomiting and all of that as a result of use. Psychological withdrawal, so they start having anxiety, they start having mood swings, they start becoming unnecessarily irritable and angered. So when you start noticing all these changes, you start questioning. Social withdrawal, my intern already spoke about it. They don't want to interact with anybody anymore. They are withdrawn. They are indoors 2/7. They suddenly don't have friends again. They are suddenly not using their phone again. They are suddenly not talking to anybody again. As a result of addiction. So how does, we are coming to the end of our seminar now, how does addiction affect the brain? Let's use alcohol as an example. Please, I'm going to show you a slide of your brain, so don't feel irritated. Alright, so the first thing that happens is that alcohol makes you to begin to lose memory. Over time, as you continue to expose yourself to alcohol, it begins to affect the areas of your brain that code for memory. So you will start seeing that you can't remember where you kept things. Simple things that you should know. You are thinking for a long time before you can remember what it is. That means it has started affecting your memory. Clumsiness. You are not able to do things in the right way anymore. Coordination and balance. In clinic, what we do, the moment someone, they always say that diagnosis begins from the door. For those of us who work in psychiatry, diagnosis begins from the door. So as the patient is coming in, we are already assessing you to know what is going on. So most times, for someone who is addicted to alcohol, you even see police do it. Okay, maybe, I don't know if they do it in these clients, but abroad, if they suspect that you are using alcohol, before they give you a breathalyzer, they will tell you to calm down and they will tell you to walk in a straight line. And you see that the person is not able to walk in a straight line because it has affected their coordination and balance. It affects the parts of the brain that help you maintain coordination and balance. Sometimes in clinic, we even tell you to bring out your tongue, and you see that the person has tremors on their tongue. Their tongue can't just stay, to be shaking. Or you tell them to stretch their hands, and you place something on it to observe, and you see that they are having hand tremors. The hands are shaking. That's the easiest way. I'm giving you this tip as parents, so that if you suspect that your child may be using a substance, these are some easy things that you can do to observe for yourself if it is true. And then they lose judgment and self-control. Things that ordinarily they will be able to say, this thing is wrong, I won't do it, or this thing is right, I will engage in it. All of a sudden, it's like the lines are blurred. They're not able to make good judgments anymore. They're not able to control themselves anymore as a result of addiction to alcohol. The next one we are going to talk about is crack. So do you know what crack is?
No.
Crack is a kind of cocaine. It's let me say the street version of cocaine. So when you can't afford the main one, what they do is they get a little of it and mix it. I won't tell you what they mix it with, so it's honest. They mix it with something, so it becomes a crystal form that they can use. So that's crack cocaine. So how does crack affect you? The first thing it does is that someone who always takes crack will begin to experience high temperature, high body temperature. You will think they are feverish. You will say, hey, this person is sick, but they are not sick. It's because of the substance that they are taking. And then over time, they begin to have high blood pressure as a result of exposure to the drug, their heart rate will increase to the point where you can even have a cardiac arrest as a result. Their lungs can collapse. So over time, their lungs will no longer be able to function, and this also happens with tobacco, nicotine. Over time, the lungs, if you see I didn't put it here because it will be very, but if you see the lungs of someone who is taking cigarettes, any kind of thing that they smoke, whether cigarettes or weed, it looks, even suya self is better. Even kilishi self sometimes can be better. So those are some of the things that,
Like smoked fish.
no, I'm talking about cigarettes. Okay, like smoked fish, yes. It becomes blackish, dry. Sometimes there may be even perforations as a result of it. And then, like I said, tremors and twitchings. They start twitching. Their hands will be shaking. They'll be having itchy body because they feel like ants or things are crawling all over their skin. And then the last one I'll talk about is addiction to cannabis by Johanna, because I brought this because it's also very common in this area. Once I was called to do a seminar with a group of my peers, and this became a debate. Why? Because now we have medical marijuana that is used for treatment, and so people who are addicted to the substance now use it as an excuse to they'll tell you that the health benefits are more than the disadvantages of it, but it's not true. The reason is, if it is being prescribed in clinic for you, it is at a regulated dose, so that it can only have the therapeutic effect that it is supposed to have on you. But when you are taking it by yourself, there is no regulation. You are just taking it. So let's not be deceived. So one of the things that cannabis does is that you need to have redness of eyes. You see that this person, their eyes are always red. You see any Igbo smoker, you know that you always see that their eyes are red as a result of using it. Their mouth is always dry. So most people who smoke Igbo also have something that they accompany it with. They either use alcohol or any kind of liquid because of that dryness that they feel. Then they have sensations of being hot or cold. So this minute I'm very hot, it's like I'm burning, and the next minute it's like I'm shivering. But this is just an example, because even people who go through menopause feel the same thing, so it's not the same. But this is just an example. Their heart rate will increase and their muscles will be relaxed. This is the main reason why they take cannabis, because of the muscle relaxant effects that it has that creates the heart. But one of the things that also happens is that it slows down your thinking. You'll be seeing that when they're talking, it's like they're cloud nine, they'll be dragging their speech. They're in a different world. And then they also have memory problems. One of the reduced motivation, they don't really have the will to engage in anything. And then I didn't add that to this slide, but erectile dysfunction can also happen as a result of exposure to cannabis. So that's going to be basically it for now. I believe that I don't want to believe I'm giving you information overload, but I believe I'm giving you enough to help us. So what's the point? It's time to seek help, and we are here for you. I don't know what we may have talked about that you feel that you need to deal with, especially trauma. That's the most important part. The trauma is the root cause of everything. If you have trauma that is not dealt with, you begin to look for negative coping mechanisms to help you deal with it. And over time, those negative coping mechanisms can evolve into addictions. So the first thing is to identify if you have a trauma and to deal with it. And sometimes it may not be easy. If someone is not trained they may not be able to help you come out of the trauma, because rather than helping you, they'll be judging you and causing more problems for you. So that is why we are here, to help you with your trauma. So I want to use this opportunity to introduce Survivors Hub and Safe Space to us. Like I said, I'm the founder of Survivors Hub, and we are a safe space for people who are struggling with trauma, psychological distress, and addiction. What we do is that we run support groups, and in our support groups, we train you on how to, first of all, come to the point where you realize what you are going through and stop blaming yourself, stop feeling guilty. And then we also help you to find a way to deal with it that it will not affect you negatively. So we share our experiences with each other, we learn from each other, we network with each other, and we also become mentors to other people who are going through the same kind of challenges that we have gone through. And so we meet monthly on Saturdays. We're experiencing the trauma that we allow to be part of us, because you're not allowed to share the stories that we share with each other outside. So if you are interested in being part of this support group, helping yourself to overcome your trauma, you can meet our office liaison, my intern Prince. He'll take down your name and we'll communicate with you when our next meeting will be, so that you can come and help yourself. Thank you so much for paying attention and for listening. I hope you'll be able to benefit something today. I'm going to give us the opportunity to ask a few questions before I go. And then for those of us who are academics, if you want the references that we have used, you can also approach myself or Prince, and we'll make them available to you. If you don't feel confident enough to stand up and ask your question, no problem. Someone is going to pass a piece of paper and a pen around, so you can write your question and we'll still attend to it. Thank you. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hosanna. It's such a beautiful thing coming out this morning to learn, to hear what happens in our mind. I have really benefited from everything you taught. But in the process, when you were talking about coping mechanisms, something came to my mind. That was why I raised my hand then, but it wasn't time for us to talk. So, what came to my mind was that suicidal thoughts should have been part of that set of discourse. Because some of us think that if I can't handle it anymore, it would be better I take my life. Thinking that dying will bring an end to that trauma. But I'm sorry to say that you living the physical world, that is that dying, death, is that you have left the physical world, does not mean that you have ceased existing. So for as long as you're still existing on the other level, in the spiritual level, whatever you do not handle here, you will continue to experience perpetually. So it's better you stay around, come to terms with it, look it in the eye, and tell it shut up, than for you to decide, I am going to die, and by dying, I have ended the issue. I think that self-love is one basic thing we should all be teaching or learning. Because if you love yourself enough, it's my thinking, I'm not a psychologist. Hello? I'm not a psychologist.
But I think that if you love yourself enough, you wouldn't want to introduce anything into your system that will cause you pain or harm you. That's my own thinking. And as I'm standing here, I think I love myself enough not to carry knife to lacerate my skin, my body, and decide to cover it up with a long sleeve. So please, is there any way you can teach us to love ourselves so that loving ourselves enough, we will know that certain things are not good for us to consume or to experience. The scripture itself says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Underneath that scripture is the assumption that you love yourself enough not to cause harm to yourself. So don't do the same to your neighbor. So please, help us. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. That's why I introduced Survivor's Hall. In our setting here, we don't have enough time to delve into as many issues as we can. But in our support group, for instance, for some of my young women who have experienced sexual violence and abuse, one of the things that I teach them is different types of power. And they are able to understand that there are different levels to power, and people operate with you according to the level of power that you give to them. So we have power to, we have power with, we have power over. There are different things. But like I said, we don't have that much time to interact and express ourselves in a setting like this. But within the confines of our support group, because it is a safe space. What do we mean by safe space? Whatever I say there ends there. Nobody takes it out. So because it's a safe space, we are able to air our views and we are also able to learn. So, but if I will be given the opportunity, I can still create a short seminar on little things that we can do that become maladaptive and how we can correct them into adaptive behaviors that can help us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Can we truly differentiate between psychological trauma and emotional trauma? Also, I would have wanted you to touch on tyrants. So much rampant in our society today, tyrants. Can you throw more light on it?
Thank you. Sorry, before I go into your question, I'll just touch a little on what our mother started with, suicidal ideation. It's very common and it can happen to anybody. I'm saying this because I too have experienced it. I've experienced it to the point of even trying to perpetuate it. When my dad passed on, and I'm confident enough to talk to you about it because I've dealt with it. That's the good thing about being a therapist. So when my dad passed on, I was filled with a lot of grief, and I felt before he passed on, I used to tell myself that instead of one person to die and the rest of the family members will have to go through the pain and suffering, it's better for everybody in the family to die on the same day. That's what I used to say. So I'll picture like a car accident that will take everybody's life so that nobody will stay to cry over the other person. But when my dad passed on, I had to deal with the reality that one person had gone and my life was still continuing. So most times, I would just stand up and walk to the road, to the center of the road, to wait for, I'll go to a highway road where cars are moving at speed so that a car can just be moving and it will crush me. And I'll tell myself that I wasn't the one that killed myself. I was just there and the car passed and it killed me. But unfortunately, or rather fortunately for me, it never happened. It always so happened that I can be there for 30 minutes and no car will pass. And the moment I leave,
I support you.
And the moment I leave that place, all the cars was. In fact, sometimes the moment I just cross to the other side, you see all the cars passing again. So that was the grace of the Lord for me. But why am I saying this? Suicidal ideation is real, and it can happen to anybody. So we should be conscious of it. And if I'm speaking to us now, if you are even going through that process where you're at the point where you feel that taking your life will be better, please come and meet me. Let's talk. I'm not charging you. Ordinarily, per session it is 50,000, but I'm not charging you. You can use my services for free. That's why we are here. Come and meet me. Let us help you to help yourself. So let me go on to the question that our father has asked about differentiating psychological and emotional trauma. Most times you can't really put a line between the two. But when we talk about psychological trauma, we are basically talking about the brain processes that activate trauma. While emotional trauma is talking about the thoughts that contribute to it. They work hand in hand. So obviously, biology does not just affect behavior. Environment will also play a part in behavior. So psychological trauma basically talks about how the chemicals of your brain react to trauma. So for instance, someone who is going through depression will have reduced levels of dopamine and serotonin, which help with arousal and pleasurable feeling and all of that. But that's the psychological aspect of the trauma. The emotional aspect of the trauma is what you can observe from the observation of their behavior, their withdrawal, their isolation. When you interact with them, you now see that their thoughts are thoughts of guilt, thoughts of anger, thoughts of fear. Those are the emotional aspects of the trauma. But most times you can't really separate the two of them from each other. And then tyranny, like you said, is very common. When we were even speaking, we talked about bullying. It's a form of tyranny. So it's very common in our society. But one of the things that you can do to help yourself, especially your children, because many children engage in maladaptive behaviors because they cannot stand up to their peers. And that is very common here because we don't give our children the right to express themselves. Even at home, there are certain things that they can't share with you because they will be afraid of how you will react to it. So sometimes, yes, there's a space for spanking, there's a space for flogging, but there should also be a space for discussion. Because when you are able to allow the child the access to you, it helps to build the concept of themselves. It helps them to know that they can stand up for themselves, and it will also help them in your absence. But even in our workplaces, sometimes we experience bullying from your colleagues, from your bosses, and all of that. It all has to do with your concept of self. If you don't have a good concept of self, you'll be susceptible to whatever any person throws at you, whatever any person does at you. So what we can do for you in that situation is to guide you through a process that helps you to develop a good self-concept, a good self-image. And usually there are activities that we do to help with that, but we don't have the time to go into that now. Thank you. Any other question?
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
I want to ask, is there anything like positive addiction?
Is there anything like positive addiction? Now I'm going to I want to see if people have actually been listening to this. I'm going to throw this question to us here. Can we have positive addictions? What do you think? If nobody volunteers, I'll volunteer somebody.
In my own belief, yes, you can have positive addictions. Like somebody who is always on time in anywhere you want to go. Once you say 8 o'clock, even if the person will not sleep at night, that 7:30 or 8 to get up, something must get the person and agility will be there. The person will be there at time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other person? Yes.
I mean, one can say that it's a positive addiction. It is said that variety is the spice of life. So I can't confine myself to one particular meal. I eat whatever is available to me. That's what creation has provided for me. I cannot say, like when we are talking about that addiction, like me, I'm a coffee addict, right from secondary school. But I was able to overcome it. And when I overcome it, I went on to lifting, which is another product. I also overcome it. So, but since you know that it's a right, you can't confine yourself to motivation of that. That's that. To me, it's positive addiction.
Thank you. Any other person? Yes, ma'am.
Hallelujah. I can say I'm positively addicted to singing because I can't do without it. I can't even stop myself. You know, if addiction is compulsive behavior, then my number one compulsive behavior is singing, glorifying and praising. So since there is positivity added to it, it is a positive addiction.
Please give me that.
Okay. As that has come.
Okay, sorry, let me answer before you. I thought you wanted to go before. Praise the Lord. Now, I like the fact that all of you stuck to one point. But if you remember, I said an addiction is a chronic relapsing disease of the brain. An addiction is what? A chronic relapsing disease of the brain. Now, what do I mean by that? There are positive coping mechanisms, but an addiction can't be positive. There are positive coping mechanisms. That means you can have strategies that you come up with that will not have negative consequences, but they will help you cope with the situation. But once it is an addiction, it means that it is interfering with your ability to function normally on a daily basis. Let me use the example that our mother gave. You said an addiction to singing. If you have an addiction to singing, you won't be able to eat. You won't be able to shout at me when I annoy you. You won't be able to do any other thing because your whole focus will be on singing. It will interrupt every other thing that you have to do. It means that even when you are supposed to sleep, when your body is supposed to be resting, your mind will be thinking of the next song that you need to sing. So when we talk about an addiction, it can't be positive because it is chronic. It is a relapsing disease. Remember I said anything that is a disease needs treatment. So if it is positive, it will not need to be treated, isn't it? So I don't think that you can have a positive addiction. Have I answered your question, sir?
Well, since there is no positive addiction, we have answered the question.
All right, thank you. Okay, so yes, ma'am. Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah. You mentioned a lot of coping mechanisms. And I'm concerned about two. Because I've had such experiences. One is the withdrawal isolation mechanism. The second one is self-harm. but particularly about talking down yourself. What do you do if you have such persons around you? Like you live in a house, or you have a child, and you see that gradually this child is withdrawing. It's time for me, and he says, I'm not hungry. Because sometimes it takes their appetite. Sometimes they sleep. My own experience is sleeping. The moment I have an emotional trauma or anything, I can go to sleep for 3 days. I don't want to get up, I don't want to come out, I don't want to eat. I don't push myself to go take a bath and so on. How do you help such a person? Because it's very uncomfortable. You're in a house. Everybody is up and doing, and this particular one needs to come out, get up from the bed. I'm dealing with people all my life. You just ask, what happened? You didn't do this thing well. Why not have to do anything? That's what the students will respond. Don't mind me, I don't know how to do anything in life. I don't know how to do anything for this particular one. Where is it coming from? And if you don't stop it there, the person will keep downplaying. I don't know how to do it. And then they just say it to you, and they begin to crumble to themselves. But they're still standing before you. And that's how I missed the other class. That's why the other lecturer now said, I don't know how to, I don't even know what is wrong with me. And the person just thought, at that point, I don't know what to tell the person. So how do we help such persons?
Thank you. There's a hand up. Hallelujah. Listening to this last part of the question, the person keeps repeating, I don't know how to do anything. Or the person has been sleeping, or maybe you give the person something to do, and then when you say, why didn't you do this? The person says, I don't know how to do it. Or I don't know how to do anything. And the person keeps repeating. That's, I don't know how to do anything. The moment she mentioned it, I felt like that person growing up has heard this repeatedly from whoever was taking care of that person. You know, we all make mistakes. We learn through making mistakes. So making mistake is a learning process. And we as adults and parents should come to terms with that. That our children may not know how to do this particular thing. Does not mean that out of anger or irritation, you will now be telling the child, you don't even really know how to do anything. You're useless. You can't ever do anything right. Can you ever do anything right? So when you keep repeating it, you're drumming it into the mind of that child. And over time, that person could relapse. That person could come to think that, this is the closest adult to me, my mother. The person that loves me most, and I don't think she could lie to me. So if she's saying repeatedly that I can't be up to any good, it means that is who I am. I think that is a parental thing, an upbringing thing. So when you see a child behaving that way, if it were myself, what I will do is to embrace that child. I will hug you and I will say sorry. I will tell you sorry. Maybe I may have said it to you, or you may have picked it from anywhere. I will call you into my inner room. We will sit down and have a heart-to-heart chat. But that chat will begin by me encouraging you, reminding you of the things you did so well. And then I will make it a point of responsibility thereafter to continue to applaud this child, you know, like whatever little thing you do, I say, so good. You did it so well, take this, go and do like this. I bought this clothes for you because of that thing you did. It is only you that could abide. That way, you will bring back the child. You will encourage the child back to the point where he picks confidence in himself, or she picks confidence in herself, to knowing that she has the ability to perform or he has the ability to do everything. It's my own thought. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we give a round of applause for that? Because she has just summarized some very key parts of the therapeutic process for that person. Now, the first thing in therapy is that there must be a support system. There must be a support system. We call it protective factors. When you are attending to whatever patient it is that you are attending to, you must know who the person has confidence in enough that they will be able to interact with, they will be able to share with. So we add that person to the treatment process. Just like she said, with the example you gave, the person is probably entering gradually into a depressive state if they've not already entered into depression. Because with depression, one of the core features is they view themselves through a negative lens. So even if, let's say, someone has a party and they were not invited for that party, they won't just see it as, okay, maybe the person forgot. They will see it as, it's because I'm a bad person. That's why nobody wants to interact with me. Everybody is avoiding me. Everybody is staying away from me. So the first step, like she said, is getting the person to see the positives. What we even do is we take it a step further. Before we even start talking about positive affirmations, we take it a step further by helping you to recognize the positives that you have. So we call it a journal. You write out all the bad things that you think all the bad qualities that you think you have, and then we will tell you to write out the good qualities that you think you have. Initially, the person can write 30 bad qualities and they will not be able to think of 2 good qualities that they have. And so you begin to remind them. But you were able to dress properly. You were able to combine, you knew the kind of colors to combine to present yourself out in public. You are able to speak well. You greeted me as you came in. You look so beautiful. As you're doing that, they'll say, oh, I didn't even realize this. And then we tell them, okay, go and do mirror therapy. For the next 30 days, stand in front of your mirror. Identify 3 things that are good about you. 3 things that you like about yourself. When you know therapy is weekly, when they come the first week, they may only be able to find 1. But you applaud them. Oh, you were able to find 1, at least you tried. What about this? Didn't you think about this? Look at your eyes. Have you ever taken a look at your eyes? See the color of your eyes. They are very special. They are very beautiful. Oh, I've never noticed it. Go back to your mirror and look at it again. By the time you get to the 30 days, you find out that the person can list over 100 things that they like about themselves because you have shown them the way. So, like our mommy has said, getting the person to feel comfortable and safe enough around you is the first step. But sometimes this person may not be your child. It may be an outsider. Maybe someone that you may not even have the access to. So what do? If you have the opportunity, you can sit down and encourage the person. Get the person's number. Try to find out a contact of someone who is close to that person, who can follow up with that person. And also encourage the person to go to therapy, because that is what will really help them with it. So it's the same thing with isolation. When someone just starts isolating themselves, it's also a sign of depression. There is one that I was going to talk about, but probably I'll do that when we come back next year. It's very common, but many people don't know it. Postpartum depression. There are a lot of women who enter into depression after giving birth, right? And yes, the depression can be so bad that they don't even want to hold that child. They don't want to see the child. And people will say she's a bad mother. She's not a bad mother. She's just dealing with an episode. So when someone begins to isolate, they always want to be indoors. They are not talking to anybody. They are not finding pleasure in doing anything. Those are signs of depression. So what you can do if it is someone that is close to you, try to break into them. And there is no laid down pattern that this is how you must follow, because we are dealing with human beings. Humans are as diverse as you can think. So the pattern will always be different. Let me give an example. While I was working at the shelter, we had a patient who was admitted. She suffered, she was abused anally, she was raped anally, and it led to fistulas and the rest. So she had to go for suturing and all. But when she came into the shelter, she was not interacting with anybody. For over a week, she didn't talk to the social worker, she didn't talk to the matron, the nurses, she was not talking to anybody. So the social worker called me and said, we need you to come and see this person because we can't, usually when we admit you into the shelter, there are documents that you need to fill for us to be able to follow up with your case with police, with the lawyers and the rest of them, but they couldn't do any of that because she was not talking. So I got there, and as I got there, it was not like I had any strategy in mind. But the moment I sat and I observed her, I saw that she had a novel on her bed. So it told me that she likes reading, she likes stories. So I decided to use that as my way to break into her. So I didn't even bother about introducing myself. I just started talking to her as if she was my friend that I've known for a very long time. And I was telling her that I love reading novels too. Have you read this book? Have you read this book? Do you know I even write? I brought out my phone. I started showing her some of my poems that I had written. She was like, oh, that she writes too. But she doesn't really pay attention to it because nobody even thinks she's good enough to read what she writes. I said, but you know, if you write something, I will read it. She said, really, will you read it? I said, yes. She said, okay. And I said, so I want you to do something. Just write anything that you feel like writing about. When I come next time, we will look at it and we will talk about it. She said, okay. I said, will you write? She said, yes, I will write. I said, okay. That conversation didn't take up to 10 minutes. But that was all I needed to do for that day. And I let her be. I came back 3 days after. And I asked her, I greeted her. This time she was actually expecting me. So she was actually happy that I came. So when I came, she was like, she was expecting that I would come the next day. I said, oh, I thought that she would be busy trying to collect her thoughts and all of that. So I wanted to give her some space. She said, oh, thank you for being helpful. And then she gave me her book she had written. When I gave her that assignment, I knew that because she had just experienced trauma, that would be the main thing on her mind. So whatever she was going to write would be about the trauma that she had experienced. And that was it. Everything she wrote it as if she was writing the story of someone else. But everything that she wrote was what she had experienced. So that was how I was able to have a conversation with her and start the therapeutic process. Today she's studying psychology, she wants to be a clinical psychologist. So why am I saying this? There is no particular pattern that you can use to break into somebody. Most times what it just takes is your ability to observe. If it is your child, you already know enough about them. So like 70% of the job is done because you know their habits, you know their interests, you know what they like. But sometimes it could be that the reason for their depression is you. And if you are the reason for their depression, they will not open up to you because they won't feel comfortable. So if you have tried to break into them and you are not able to get access into their mind or to gain their confidence, look for someone who they love and they respect. It could be a child in the neighborhood, a 3-year-old that is their friend, that whenever they see that child, they are happy and they are laughing. You can just invite that child to come and play with them. And because that child is around, they will want to interact, they will want to talk. But they will still use it as an opportunity to express their pain because they don't think that the child can understand what they are saying. So they will just be talking. And in the process of their talking, you will pick up the things that you need to help them with. So the main thing is that observation is key. If you are able to observe, pay attention to the little things, you'll be guided on how to help them. But I will still emphasize, let them see a therapist because that is where the real help will come from. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other question? All right. Thank you so much for listening, for paying attention. I hope that we will not just drop what we have heard. You have a question now. I hope we will not just drop what we've heard here. We will make use of it, deal with your trauma, express it, break the prison that you put yourself in. Many of us have been in prison for 20 years, 30 years, and we don't even know that we're in prison. Take courage, come out of the prison. There is help waiting for you. We are here. We will support you, we will lead you through, and you'll be able to achieve your potential. Thank you so much for listening to me.